Hey, how's it going? Welcome to Hold the Ball, HTB. Hope all is well. Thanks again, guys, for tuning in. I appreciate it very much. Welcome to another episode of Ball and All Chat, where we discuss all things rugby league, as well as, I try to give you guys something to think about, mull over, because, hey, I think that's also cool. It's good to also listen to news, but at the same time, I like to try and make you guys think as well, which I think is important. But in saying that, I've got a ball to catch. Hit the intro. So, like I said, ball and all chat. I've got a few topics here to discuss. I'll go through them one by one. The first one I'll talk about is expansion. So, as we know, guys, things have been happening in the NRL world, amongst other things, right? Player dramas, you've got player exits, player transfers, and hey, you've got COVID, right? But in saying that, expansion has been sort of amongst there in the background, and as busy as it has been in the NRL, I think anyway, we've still been able to sort of hear about, expansion, particularly from the eastern region up in Queensland. Now, there are three teams that have thrown their hat. They've got the Redcliffe Dolphins, Ipswich Jets, as well as the Brisbane Firehawks. Now, I'm not too sure what's happening with the Bombers there. Part of me thinks they may have dropped out, in saying I'm not too sure. However, I digress. I go back to what I'm talking about. With this expansion thing here, obviously, it's important to note that when it does happen and commence in 2023, obviously these, still not official yet as to when it'll happen. Obviously the viewpoint is 2023. However, in saying that, unsure still, but point being, when it happens, we understand that there'll be 17 teams, and in saying that, obviously one team will get a bye every week. Now, with those three teams, obviously the important thing you got to take into consideration, sure, there's history, but in saying that, when it comes to expansion, I'm not sure if that's the biggest sort of, enticement anyway for me personally. However, I do believe though that location, I think, is beneficial, as well as support base. Now, obviously, if you're looking at Redcliffe and you compare it to Ipswich, obviously those two teams participate in the Queensland Rugby League Cup. The second string sort of, competition there in Queensland. Or technically first, if you get what I mean. But in saying, obviously, they've got their own little regions, Ipswich and Redcliffe, and you've got Brisbane, right? For me personally, obviously, you're going to look at it, you probably put Brisbane in. However, in saying that, there are cases that can be made for the Dolphins as well as the Jets. One is the financial backing, and number two as well is just that, I sort of said it before, I don't want to play too much in the history of it as well, because if you do sort of play it with history, obviously then you look at the Brisbane team and they have no chance. And I don't think that NRL are going to be looking at it from a history point of view, in terms of what the teams have done prior to. I think they're going to be really looking at two of the main things. One, finance, and I think the other one is also stability in the long run. Obviously, you don't have a club that expands and then sort of relies on NRL to sort of help them out. Which can be very detrimental to the club, particularly in the short run and short term, as well as the long term. But in saying that, going back to it, Dolphins to me, I think have a good chance. I've heard that financially they're good, and obviously they're targeting some players, and on top of that as well, Ipswich are the same. So again, it is going to be very tight. And obviously on top of that as well, you've got Brisbane as well, who again add that sort of, city sort of link, which is going to be important. To be fair with you guys, if you're looking for them from a rivalry point of view, you're going to be picking the Firehawks, 110%, because Firehawks against Broncos, Brisbane against Brisbane on a Friday night, right? That's a dream come true over there for their people who like to promote the game there. And obviously the NRL, it's just like a lucrative time slot. It's all those things come into play. But again, if you're thinking about the region, well, look, then, yeah, it's you've got the Cowboys, right? You've got the Townsville. Yeah, so if you add in Redcliffe, then perhaps you can do Redcliffe versus Townsville, right? Ipswich versus Townsville. But then obviously you've got the Gold Coast Titans. But I think for me personally, they're sort of like a city team, to be fair. I view them like I view Brisbane, right? I view Townsville as more like the regional / rural team, and I view Gold Coast and Brisbane as the city team. So if you add in, say, Ipswich or Redcliffe, I would view that personally as a regional team, rule team. Whereas if you add again, Brisbane, that'll be 3-1. So again, it sort of depends on where they want to go. So obviously with that being said, there's also been very heavy rumours regarding Wayne Bennett. Yes, Wayne Bennett, a very good coach who is currently coaching the Rabbitohs, potentially actually signing in to coach this team in 2023, either team. Now, obviously, in that being said, there's that star power from a coaching perspective, but then we've also heard Cameron Munster as well say that he wants to partake, possibly, in the new team as well. And obviously, either of those teams there would be good for him. I don't think he really minds as to which team gets in, and I don't think you should mind personally. I think at the end of the day, expansion is the most important thing, and obviously we can sort of dissect, as I sort of have done, the teams, the locations, reasons why not. But I mean, ultimately, expansion I think is more important than where it's expanded to, particularly in Queensland. Obviously, I do think it does make a lot of sense to have a fourth team there. Obviously, add in the fact that you got potential new fans. You might have some fans who are sick of, say, for example, supporting Titans. They might jump and support the other team, so things like that. But you've got the star players like Munster who wants to play, and obviously on top of that as well, I'm assuming that there'll be other players. He won't be the only one. Other players who want to try and experience what it's like, or even players who can't make it into a particular squad, but can definitely slot into this one here. So again, there's a whole heap of a lot of variables here to sort of think about and sort of again think about regarding the future of the NRL here. But for me personally, I think, if you're going to start a team, Wayne Bennett's name being thrown around is definitely not a bad name to be thrown around. And then obviously to have the star backings as well is a good thing. You got your Munsters, right? You got players who are off contract 2022. Mundell was one of them, right? And there's a few other key players too. Escapes me at the moment. But again, look, you've got basic fundamentals. Say you get 3 to 4 key players, marquee players, and then you get the rest around them. Say, for example, from New South Wales or the Queensland Cup, or even some players from New Zealand, again, or England, who knows. But there's always that sort of basis you can work and build towards, which I think would benefit any team, again, putting them forth. For me personally, though, in saying that, look, as much as I do like the idea of a regional team, I think realistically, you've got to go the more inner city team. You've got to go with the city team here. You've got to pick the Brisbane Firehawks, reason being, again, the finances, the fans, the potential, rivalry clashes. And again, to be fair with you, location-wise, it's perfect. Financially, if you add Brisbane and in the NRL, again, it's a win-win, to be fair with you. You've got the Sydney Roosters, Sydney Rabbitohs. Why not add the Brisbane Firehawks, Brisbane Broncos? So that's sort of the way I look at it. In saying that, though, you guys can sort of tell me what you guys think about that. But I do expect some expansion news very soon, and I think they may be picking very soon, so stay tuned to that. All right, so the next topic for discussion is the New Zealand Warriors. Now, this is not about them as a team, but in regards to what's happening to them next year, and we all know that things are up in the air regarding where they may be, but there's a very high chance that the Warriors will be playing in Australia again. And as we sort of look into that, we sort of think, well, obviously, A, it's a bummer, B, it just sucks, and C, again, why? But in saying that, you've got to look at the logistics here, the reality here, and obviously that safety first thing. Now, again, I go back to my thoughts on it. I think it's devastating if that is the case. Can a vaccine sort of prevent these things? I don't know. Can a vaccine, sort of allow for these players to travel, to go back and forth? I don't know, which is why I sort of question, again, I'm not questioning COVID. It's just more so questioning my stance on if people are taking vaccines and they still can't travel between the two countries, well then, again, more food for thought. But in saying that, obviously, with the Warriors, if they do potentially play back if they do potentially stay back, and rumours are it's going to be Queensland this time around, who knows? Again, you just don't know. Could be back at Central Coast, you don't know. But in saying that, if they do play again, To a degree, I sort of see it as a positive. You got the negatives, but then you got the positives. The negatives, I'll go over first, obviously, New Zealand Warriors, right? And they're based in Australia. That's one. Number two, the fans back in New Zealand. And then number three, obviously, again, just the growth, the missing of the growth there, particularly in New Zealand Rugby League, for New Zealand Rugby League. And again, it's just very difficult because obviously, again, you're getting a lot of the fans in New Zealand watching the Warriors play in Australia, wanting them to come back. They can't. It's tough, you know what I mean? Particularly for those players who are from New Zealand, who have family in New Zealand. What happens next year? Do they drop out? Do some decide they don't want to play anymore? Again, do you blame them? I don't know. Amar was recently one of the more recent players to go back to New Zealand due to, family reasons. And the story was, their children. He couldn't lie to his kids anymore. What do you do in that situation? Now, the positive side to it, though, obviously, is being based in Australia. There's that chance of being able to sign more Australian players. Let's just be honest now. And also on top of that as well, there's that, what's the word? I guess New Zealand, the Warriors in New Zealand staying in Australia get more, what's the word? I guess more of a following, should I say? More of a following, more of a recognized sort of approach from others who view them. And at the same time as well, there's that representation that they carry. So there's all those sort of positive things. And on top of that as well, players together, players training together, being together, staff as well, because everything's already situated there. It almost makes sense. Now, the outcome, though, is what happens. Is this a long-term thing, short-term thing? Do the Warriors suddenly become an Australian team? Now, seriously, you may look at me and you may question why I'm saying that, but the reality is, though, you've got to really take all these things into consideration, quite literally. Would it be a crazy thing if the Warriors suddenly became situated in Australia? Not really. I wouldn't be shocked. Could I imagine the Warriors being based in Australia and going back to New Zealand every now and then as a special sort of thing? I think I can. Again, it depends because obviously if Australia sort of, sorting out COVID and then New Zealand saying no travel, and if you got to travel, you got a 2-week thing. Again, it leaves a lot of, I guess, gray areas, a lot of gray areas there. Nothing is really black and white. And again, the real possibility of New Zealand playing again in Australia for the third year in a row consecutively. Yeah, crazy. And to think that I haven't seen the Warriors play Mount Smart for quite some time is very sad. I think the last time was like early 2020, I believe, or like late 2019 was the last time, I saw the Warriors play in Mount Smart. But I mean, yeah, it's not good. It's not great, personally. I mean, I understand that they get paid good money. So like, they're in rags. You know what I mean? The NRL look after them financially. But yeah, you called New Zealand Warriors for a reason. Now, I understand for COVID, you just got to do what you got to do. But I mean, yeah, where do you sort of draw the line there? I'm not too sure. But in saying that, I suppose that the Warriors do end up playing in Australia again. It's just the same thing, right? But is there disadvantages? Absolutely. Will the NRL ever repay us, or could the NRL ever repay us for what the New Zealand Warriors have done? I don't know. I do not think so. But is it one of those things where you just got to accept it for what it is and try and move with the times? I think so. But again, where does the vaccine come in? When is there a permit pass? Can a visa pass be granted? Not too sure there. But again, with the Warriors sort of being in New Zealand, in Australia again, potentially, it is annoying. To be fair, it is annoying. But in saying that, what do you sort of think? What are your thoughts on that? Thought I'll leave it with you guys there. All right, and the third topic I want to talk about is criticizing players. So, yeah, obviously we all sort of support teams. And again, say, for example, you might be a Raiders fan. You might be looking at Jared Croker. Say, for example, you're a Broncos fan. And up until this point anyway, you're probably looking at Anthony Milford or even Brodie Croft. Say, for example, you're a Cowboys fan, you could be probably looking at Jason Tamalolo himself. As a Warriors fan, potentially Chad Townsend. And on an odd occasion, we've heard Chanel Harris-Tavita's name being thrown around, Kane Evans. Or say, for example, if you're a Titans fan, you could be possibly looking at either Proctor from time to time, or even Fifita himself. You're right. And sometimes even if he goes to the Knights, possibly Clemmer. But what I'm trying to say is that there are different teams with fans who have different views on different players. And obviously I understand that everyone who plays NRL, it's not like it happened magically, right? Like you literally have to focus and harness, like all sports. You got to literally put your focus and dedication and craft into this so that you can hone your craft, you can create your craft, and you can make, I guess to be fair with you, money out of your craft. And these players spend year in, year out, particularly when they're young, as kids, they, play footy, blah, 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 folks, blah, blah, take them and all that stuff as we hear. And obviously they get the big call and they debut in our contract, so on and so forth. So what I'm trying to say there is that no player that you've seen that plays in NRL has just accidentally walked in there. There has to be some sort of pathway through either sheer strength, talent, or determination to get there. And obviously on top of that as well, you place those players, say for example a Kiwi player, you place them in a Dragon system, or for example a player from say Cronulla, and then you place them in a Gold Coast system, or say for example a Gold Coast player, you place them in a New Zealand system. And obviously what I mean by that is you place these players in different teams, and then they got the fans from that particular area who love and are passionate. And obviously when things don't go their way or the fans' ways, particularly concerning that player, sometimes the fans can sort of, as we all have done, critique the player. Now, for me personally, the only reason why I bring this up is it's more so criticism of a player and where to draw the line. Now, for me personally, you've seen me, I like to be really critical of my thoughts on players, particularly if I don't like them. On the field, that is. Again, there's nothing personal when I'm critiquing a player. If I don't like him, I'm not talking about them. I'm not talking about them, their family. No, I'm literally talking about them and what they provide with the ball in hand. All right? I'm not out there calling them names and all that stuff, because there's just no need. It's unnecessary. And to be fair with you, when you do that, I think you cross the line. Now, what I'm trying to say though is that if you do critique a player and say, for example, you don't like him, you shouldn't be backlashed just because you share a view that is as straightforward as that. I can give you many examples of views against a player that are very hurtful and harmful and not great. But then if you see for example, a fan may look at a player and be like, not a fan, not really, or why are they playing again? That to me, that's fair game, to be fair with you. And I guess again, as players, when you play, regardless of whether you like it or not, you're going to be subject to either praise or criticism. That's just the way it goes in all facets of sport, not just rugby league. And I guess as a player you can sort of take it either way. But for me personally, for a fan who, say for example, doesn't like a particular player, say for example Jared Croker, you can get the fans who don't like him, appreciate him but don't like him, don't want him to play. That doesn't mean they've crossed the line. It just sort of means that from an analytical sort of standpoint, from a critic's standpoint, they've understood, sort of, I guess, concluded that that player is not good enough to be part of that team. That player doesn't mold, doesn't help, doesn't, move the needle, so to speak, right? And so again, when you have players who aren't playing up to par, who probably don't gel, probably don't do their best, probably aren't good enough, I don't think a fan should be labelled as a sledger, as a harasser, as a mean person, as a this or that, just because they share a different opinion on a player. That's my personal view. Now again, I'm not trying to say that if you see a particular player who keeps on dropping the ball and you get angry and you swear at him and that's okay. No, I'm not saying that. I personally don't advocate for harsh words on a player, because at the end of the day, it's not like they're trying to, but such is human nature that from both ends we can sort of collide. And obviously as a fan who watches, the passion is that you want to win, you want them to do well, you just want to beat the opposition, and when you don't, there needs to be a scapegoat. Perhaps there needs to be some sort of channeling, some sort of vessel that takes the energy, I suppose, the hammer blow. Now for me, as I said before, I draw the line personally is when it comes to the swearing part, the anger, right? The actual genuine anger of a player. Like, I like example, say you don't like this player and you say, I absolutely hate this player. Really, really hate him. I think that's a law. That's a sand cross, dude. You just don't cross that. But again, healthy criticism, or even criticism that says, look, I'm not a fan of this guy. Why is he being picked? I think that's healthy. Like, that's genuine. Like, oh well, like, you share a different view. That's okay. Again, someone else may not, but let's healthy debate at the end. But I guess what I'm trying to say, though, yeah, like I said, is criticism of a player, it's fine so long as you don't cross a particular line, and you shouldn't feel bad, honestly, for having a personal view on a player, so long as you're not crossing lines. If that player that's being picked isn't someone you like seeing because they did A, B, and C when they could have done E, F, and G, well, what do you do? Particularly when it's not just you who sees it. Say, for example, it's a collective fan base and they see it too. Yeah, but look, that's just sort of my thought there. What do you think? Criticism of player. Should you not? Are you bad for doing it? Where do you draw your line? Again, like I said, I draw my line at the swearing, at the personal stuff. Whenever I critique a player, it's never about their personal anything, quite literally about the player and what they do with the ball in hand, and if they tie their shoes or not. But look, in saying that, tell me what you guys think there. All right, so I guess I've got two more sort of thoughts here, just quickly. One is this might be a bit controversial. The NRL campaigns, right, that have recently shown up regarding the vaccine, and it sort of ties into my New Zealand Warriors one right before, when I was talking about the vaccine, and we all like to promote it. We're all seeing it being promoted, right? We're all knowing what's happening in New South Wales, Queensland, South Australia, WA. If you can get the vaccine, you get it, basically, is the narrative. Now, I need to choose my words carefully here, because I don't want to tell you guys that I am or am not, sort of for it or against it. To me personally, I'm actually, sort of in the, what's the word? I'm sort of in the process of thinking about getting the vaccine myself. Like I said, there's no wrong or right. We're all allowed opinions here. But my point, though, is with the NRL campaign, what are your thoughts on it? Especially when you're seeing, sort of players saying, I want to get my vaccine so I can go back to New Zealand and see my family. I want to get my vaccine so I can actually be able to see fans in attendance. I want to get my vaccine so I can actually, walk the street, blah, blah, blah. What are your thoughts on it, particularly when you see the narrative being pushed now again? I don't want to make this political, but purely from an NRL standpoint, context. What are your points? What do you think of it when you see these NRL players saying, here, get the vaccine? And then when you say, for example, as a fan, you're watching, you don't want the vaccine. Now, again, bear in mind, I've told you, I am sort of 50-50 on the vaccine, more so leaning on getting it. However, I don't think that, say, for example, Johnny watching the NRL who loves supporting the Tigers but doesn't want a vaccine should feel like an outsider just because he doesn't want one. And when the NRL are pushing these campaigns that are saying pro-vaccine, let's be honest, is what it is. What are they trying to say then for the person who doesn't want it? You know what I mean? What's the story there for say, example, Johnny, who loves watching the Tigers play, isn't too happy at the moment how they're traveling, doesn't really want a vaccine, doesn't like seeing the ads. And obviously, again, you can say, well, tough luck, sure, okay. But again, if Johnny wants to watch league, doesn't have the vaccine, can he watch league? Yeah, all I'm just trying to say is that with the whole pro-vaccine thing, obviously, I don't imagine NRL coming out saying being anti-vaccine, right, or hesitant to the vaccine. I think they're two different things. But again, obviously, they're going to be pushing. And I don't know if it's an agenda, because I do generally believe that the vaccine, to be fair with you, is helpful, or seeing results. And obviously, you can sort of say, well, there isn't, whatever. Again, I don't want to make this political. It's just my thoughts on the campaign push. and I guess trying to see it from all points of views, right? And obviously, I'm certain that people watching have had the vaccine. There are people who are watching this who have not had the vaccine. So again, it's really important to try and distinguish as to which camp you belong into. But at the same time, also remember that if you're in one camp, not to feel bad. If you're in the other, not to feel bad. But again, the NRL pushing the vaccine thing, I just find that interesting, because it's not like they're going to have a campaign that's saying do not take it. Again, just something I thought about. As I said before, side note, I'm 50-50 on the vaccine. Probably leaning more on getting it. But in saying that, just because I'm leaning on getting it, doesn't mean my opinion should differ from somebody else's who isn't, or somebody else who has their vaccine. It's about being open. We're all out different opinions, right? But in saying that, what are your thoughts on it? It's interesting. I just think it's interesting that the NRL are, I wouldn't say pushing, but the NRL are definitely highlighting the vaccine, right? Getting different players to do it. Will they ever get a player who doesn't want to do it? Obviously, we do know of a few players who are anti-vaccination. That's okay too, I suppose. You do what you want in your body. But I mean, would the NRL ever push a no to vaccine campaign? Because they're doing a pro-vaccine campaign, which is not bad. But like I said, food for thought. Anyway, I'm not going to go back and forth on this. What do you guys think about that? And look, as I sort of wind this up as well, guys, I've got one more topic. Now, obviously, if you guys haven't been watching my previous couple of videos, lives, I do have a hot take here, and I'd like to hear your hot take. But my hot take for the NRL season is that the Storm did not make the grand final. And the reason why I say that is because they're so intense at the moment. They're so dominant. I just think they'll be too dominant for their own good. And what I mean by that is they might lapse in concentration where it sort of counts. Obviously, I try to say this as I'm pretty anti-Storm, to be fair. But I'm trying to look at it realistically. Like I can actually see that happening, and obviously many may not, but I think it's a possibility. That is my hot take. My hot take is that the Storm don't make the grand final. What's yours? And look, I also think another hot take as well is that Manly just miss out on the 4. That's what I think. I think Roosters do enough to solidify their spot. In saying that, I could be wrong though, because things could happen this week. Roosters have a pretty tough challenge up against the Rabbitohs, and if they lose it and Manly have the Bulldogs, well, hey, there you go. But look, actually, I should probably change my hot take. My hot take is Manly are either 4th or 5th on the ladder at the end of the season. Storm don't make the grand final. But look, thanks again, guys, for hanging out. Thanks again, guys, for listening to me. You're great if you made it this far. Tell me what you guys' thoughts are, particularly on some of these issues I've raised. Criticism players, the COVID, sort of campaign with the NRL, where the Warriors may end up playing, and expansion, and obviously hot takes as well. Give me your thoughts on them. But in saying that, guys, thanks again for tuning in. I appreciate it very much. Look, I've got more videos coming in. What are your views? Anyway, take it easy. I've enjoyed it. Hope you have too. But in saying that, take it easy and hold the ball. See you guys next time.